The Curity Identity Server is an OAuth and OpenID Connect server that can handle user authentication with multi-factor authentication and single sign-on. It has a highly customizable token service for token issuance, as well as built-in user management. Now, these standards can be complex to implement, and that's where the Curity Identity Server comes in. It simplifies the complexities, making it easier and faster to implement a fully customized token-based architecture without any code. The Curity Identity Server exposes 3 services: an authentication service, a token service, and a user management service. These 3 work together to authenticate the user and to issue tokens for various OAuth and OpenID Connect flows. It also has a built-in alarm system. This automatically detects errors within the environment and can correlate impacted resources. If, for example, a data source is used by an authenticator, this will be indicated in the alarm. It can provide detailed error descriptions about the affected resources, and it has capabilities to notify alarm handlers of these problems. One such alarm handler is the PagerDuty alarm handler. It's available out of the box in the Curity Identity Server. It will post alarm state changes directly to PagerDuty when configured, allowing the PagerDuty control panel to be used to implement further workflows to handle and respond to various alarms. Setting up the integration between PagerDuty and Curity is pretty simple. In PagerDuty, we can create a service. We don't have one already. New service. Give it a name. I'm going to skip the description. Click Next. We can either generate a new escalation policy or select one. I have one, so I'm going to choose my existing one here. Next. I'm going to use the default intelligent alert grouping. Next. Here we can search for integrations. If we search for Curity in here, in the list we get Curity Identity Server. Choose that. Scroll down and click Create Service. Now we have some information that we need on the Curity side to set this integration up. We need the host part of the integration URL here, as well as the path. We also need the integration key. Let's switch over to the Curity admin UI. On this main overview page, this is where we have the alarms section. There are no alarms right now, but here's where we can normally see an alarm. We got the qualifier and the service, severity, etc. I'm going to set up an alarm handler for PagerDuty. We'll give it a name and select the PagerDuty notifier. Click Create. This is now where we need to input that information from PagerDuty. So we got the host, the context or the path there, the integration key. We need to configure an HTTP client that is responsible essentially for communications with PagerDuty. And we also need to change the port from port 80 to 443. I'm going to commit these changes so that they are saved in the system. And then we click OK. Now to test this out, I'm going to use OAuth tools. Just run through a simple authentication flow. I'm going to use an authenticator that uses an underlying data source, and I'm going to temporarily make that data source unavailable for the system. So when I log in here, the database that checks these credentials is actually going to be unavailable. So it's going to sit here for a little while and not be able to authenticate, and it's going to trigger an alarm. So the authentication went through now because the database came back up. But if we take a look in the Curity admin UI, we can see here that there is an alarm triggered in here. And now you can see here on my PagerDuty app on my iPhone that an alarm was triggered here too. It's a slow connection alarm raised for a data source that's named default data source. If I scroll down in the information here, there's a detailed description. The data source has failed to communicate with a remote host. And further down, we can also see that it's impacting several resources here, some account managers, different authentication actions, like getting user data from this specific data source. It's impacting several authenticators and clients that are using these authenticators. I can switch to take a look at the timeline for this incident, for example, as well as the status updates, if there's additional subscribers to this. And with this, I can also acknowledge this incident to kind of snooze further alerts on it or further notifications. And if we know that it's been taken care of, we can also resolve the issue here in PagerDuty. So that's the integration between Curity and PagerDuty. A good starting point if you don't have an instance of Curity is the Getting Started guide at curity.io. There's also further information in the resource library on the integration between PagerDuty and the Curity Identity Server.